What's up guys, Weevil YouTube here back with another video. So with Prophecy scheduled to become a tier 0 type deck with Spellbook of Judgment just having been released, I thought I would post up some suggestions with cards that you can use to combat the deck. There is one in particular that I'm going to be talking about today, and that card is Curse of Darkness. So let's get straight into the discussion. So for anyone who is familiar with Prophecy decks, you'll know that they like to search a lot, no shit. They'll normally go Spellbook of Secrets or Spellbook Magician of Prophecy into Secrets, and then they'll go Master, and then they'll copy a normal Spellbook in their graveyard. And they'll more than likely search out this card, Spellbook of Judgment. As we all know, it is the money card of the set in Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy alongside Mega Fan Beast Dragossack. It pretty much allows you to add the same number of spell cards from your deck to your hand that you activated this turn, and special summon a spellcaster type monster from your deck whose level is equal to or less than the number of cards added by this effect. So it is pretty much one of the stupidest cards ever created for a specific archetype, probably next to Honest, which I thought was pretty silly when it was at 3. But people often find themselves overwhelmed by the amount of advantage that a Prophecy player is gaining against them, and they think that there's actually no solution for it. Perhaps they're running Mermails, and Mermails only run about 7 or 8 spells in their deck. And so the answer I would give to them would be to run Curse of Darkness in your side deck. And what Curse of Darkness does is basically each time a spell card is activated, and this is either player by the way, the controller of that card takes 1000 points of damage. And it may seem like a fairly simplistic card at first, but I assure you, it completely cripples Prophecy players. So naturally the best time to activate this is during your opponent's draw phase in their very first turn, because if they start the way they typically should with Spellbook of Secrets, Spellbook of the Master, and Spellbook of Judgment, that's already 3 Spellbook spell cards they've activated, and it's 3000 points of damage for them. And admittedly, the deck's defense, apart from Spellbook of Fate, isn't actually that great. It tends to go on the offense and search a lot and completely overwhelm the opponent with the amount of plussing, that it does. But if it can't do that, if it doesn't have time to actually manifest that sort of strategy in a duel, then it's going to lose very quickly. If it only activates 2 spell cards per turn, that's still only 4 turns, and then it's a goner, basically. Normally, if the deck starts slowly, it will normal summon Spellbook Magician of Prophecy with only a measly 500 attack points. Very easy to get over. It will rely on its Tragoedias and stuff like that in order to defend itself. But honestly, it still needs to activate spell cards, and if you flip this up during their draw phase in their very first turn, they are going to have a very difficult time getting over it if they don't draw that MST or some other way of getting rid of it. Something else worth mentioning is the fact that if you happen to draw this card mid or late game, which for a lot of side deck cards is practically useless, like if you don't draw your Dimensional Fissure in against a Mermail deck, and then they'll probably OTK you in a couple of turns, or whatever, 3 or 4 turns, whatever the case may be. The same goes for a lot of other side deck cards against certain decks. There are certain decks that if you let them do their thing for even a few turns, then you're in like a serious amount of trouble. Whereas Prophecy decks tend to play a little bit more slowly. And if you happen to draw Curse of Darkness mid or late game, when perhaps you've taken more than half their life points from them, it might be just enough for you to hold them back for a couple of turns in order for you to finish the duel off. Because if they're on a low amount of life points already and they're not able to activate any of their spell cards, for example, if they're on less than 1000 life points and you flip up Curse of Darkness, not only can they not MST or Curse of Darkness, but they can't activate any spell cards, period. Or even if they're on 2000 points or more, then they still won't be able to do much of a lot. So that is why I think that Curse of Darkness has a lot of longevity in the duel. Whether you play it early, mid, or late game, it is still really, really effective. So my final comment on this card is that not only can it be used against Prophecy decks, but against any deck that uses a lot of spell cards. And secondly, that it's just a really, really good generic side deck card. It doesn't have any special requirements. It isn't archetype specific. It's just whenever spell cards are activated, the controller takes 1000 points for each spell card. It is an extremely simple card. And for that reason, I think it is really, really effective against the meta right now, specifically against Prophecy decks. Anyway, guys, that's it for the video today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe as always. And let me know what you think of Curse of Darkness. Personally, I think it is a really simple, effective side deck card, and also happens to be extremely cheap. So I wouldn't be worrying about Spellbook of Judgment derping all over you. I would more so be concerned with how you are going to cope with it in terms of your side deck choices. So definitely try out Curse of Darkness in the side deck. Admittedly, Prophecy players haven't made much of a representation at YCS events as of yet, because Spellbook of Judgment has only been released in the last week or so. And at YCS New Jersey, of course, they didn't have Spellbook of Judgment. And for those who did, good for them. But even if they did actually have it and it was actually legal, we don't know whether or not they would have topped with the deck, with the amount of Mermail decks going around that just spam an OTK so quickly, and with the amount of Firefish decks that actually have a really good matchup against Prophecy players. So anyway, let me know what you think of the card, and I have plenty more videos coming up soon, so be sure to check those out. I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.